Hey guys, good to see you again. Nitish here. I hope you are having an amazing day. So let's talk about concha. Concha is one of the most famous traditional Mexican breads made with rich brioche dough. It has this crusty striped topping that makes it look like a seashell. That is why it is called concha in Spanish. And let me tell you guys, it's one of those breads that I always picked up in one of those panaderias in Mexico while I was there. And today we are going to recreate it in our own kitchen and I'm going to show you how. So let's begin. Okay amigos, so the first thing we're gonna do is activating the yeast. Here I got 110 milliliters lukewarm whole milk and I'm using an instant read thermometer to make sure that the milk is at the right temperature and it should be anywhere between 90 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. To that I'm gonna add 9 grams instant yeast and 1.5 teaspoons granulated sugar. Then give it a nice stir to dissolve the yeast and let it sit at room temperature for 5 to 10 minutes. Meanwhile, in a medium-sized mixing bowl, I'm gonna crack 4 eggs that are at room temperature. And we should totally avoid using cold temperature eggs for the dough because they will slow down the rising process, they won't disperse evenly in the dough and will change the texture of the conchas. So I suggest you guys to pull the eggs out of the fridge and let them sit at the counter for half an hour before using them. Then in a stand mixer's bowl, we are gonna add 500 grams all-purpose flour, 150 grams granulated sugar and a teaspoon kosher salt. Then whisk all of them together to combine and keep aside. And after sitting for 10 minutes, the yeast should look all frothy and foamy just like this. And if not, then discard it, redo this step and make sure that your yeast is activated before moving on to the next step. Now I'm gonna attach the dough hook, start the mixer on a low speed, add our activated yeast and then immediately add all of the eggs. And continue kneading until everything is combined and a cohesive dough forms. Then we are gonna increase the speed to medium-low and add 100 grams room temperature unsalted butter and continue kneading for 12 to 15 minutes. Now while it's kneading, the butter is gonna stick to the sides of the bowl, so keep scraping it down intermittently and continue kneading until the butter is fully incorporated. And after kneading for 15 minutes, the dough should look really smooth, very elasticy and slightly sticky when touched. Now to make sure that our dough is kneaded enough, we are going to do a very simple test known as window pane test. To do that, we are gonna take a little piece out of the dough and roll it between our palms to shape it into a smooth ball. Then we are gonna stretch it between our fingers very gently until we have a very thin membrane as you are seeing right now. Which means the gluten in our dough has developed enough and there is no more kneading required and is ready for proofing. But if it tears quickly while you are stretching it, then knead your dough for a few more minutes until it passes the window pane test. Now if you guys are not using a stand mixer for kneading the dough, you can mix all of the ingredients in a large mixing bowl and knead it for a good 20 minutes and make sure it passes the window pane test. And then follow the rest of the process and you should be good. Now let's get back to the video. Now we are gonna lightly grease a large bowl with some softened unsalted butter, pull the dough out of the mixing bowl and fold it in itself like so. Then pinch the seams to close the bottom and drop it right into the bowl, keeping the seam side down. Then brush the top with some more butter, cover it with a plastic wrap and let it proof at room temperature for 2 hours or until it's doubled in size. Now while the dough is proofing, we are gonna make 2 kinds of toppings for the conchas. The first one is the traditional white topping and the second one is the chocolate one, which I absolutely love. So for both the toppings in 2 separate medium-sized mixing bowls, we are gonna add 80 grams softened unsalted butter and sift 80 grams powdered sugar through a fine sieve to get rid of any lumps if there are any. And mix both of them with a spatula until they are nice and fluffy. Then we are gonna sift 80 grams all-purpose flour and in one of the bowl we are gonna sift 5 grams cocoa powder, which is going to be our chocolate topping. Then we are gonna mix them again until we have a very thick paste-like consistency and keep them covered with a plastic wrap until ready to use. After 2 hours, our dough looks nice and puffy and it has got doubled in size. Now we are gonna punch this guy down to release the gases, transfer it onto the work surface and knead it very briefly for like 1 minute. Then I'm gonna shape it into a log and then using a weighing scale divide it into 8 equal sized pieces about 130 grams each. Once it's divided, we are gonna shape those pieces into smooth balls. So we are going to place one of the pieces on a flour-free work surface, bring all of its edges to the center until we see the bottom of the dough is tightening up and getting somewhat smooth. Then we are gonna pinch the seams to close the bottom, flip it to keep the seam side down and move it in a circular motion while dragging it against the surface under our palm like so. And keep going until it turns into a really tight smooth ball. Then pinch the seams one last time and place it on a half sheet pan that is brushed heavily with some softened unsalted butter and continue shaping the rest of the pieces. And after shaping, we are gonna rearrange them and make sure there is at least 3 to 4 inches space between each of the dough ball so they don't stick to each other while they are proofing and baked in the oven later on. And these two guys you are looking at right now, they are not gonna be left behind, alright. I'm just gonna bake them in a separate sheet pan. Now the next step is adding those toppings onto these dough balls. So we're gonna brush all of the dough balls with some melted unsalted butter, which is gonna work like an adhesive for the topping so they don't slide or move while baking. Then we're gonna transfer the topping onto the work surface, clump it together and shape it into an equal sized tight log. Once shaped, we are gonna divide it into 4 equal parts and shape those pieces into smooth balls. And repeat the same with the rest of the toppings. Now we are gonna flatten these toppings into a 4-inch round shape, and there are 2 ways to do it. The first way of doing it is using a tortilladora, also known as tortilla press, and 2 large enough plastic sheets. So we're gonna place one of the plastic sheets on the base of the tortilla press, then place the topping in the center, press it a little bit, and then cover the topping with the other plastic sheet. Then we are gonna press it very gently for just one time with an equal amount of pressure like so. And there you have your 4 inches round topping. Now very carefully we are gonna peel off the top plastic sheet, then flip it onto the fingers of the other hand, carefully peel off the other piece of plastic and then place it onto the dough ball and make sure it's covered from all sides. Now the second way to do it is using anything flat you got in the kitchen. And in my case it's going to be this low bowl which has a very smooth flat bottom. So we are gonna place one of the plastic sheets on a very flat surface, place the topping in the center, press it a little bit, cover it with the other plastic sheet, then place whatever you're using on top of the topping and press it down with enough pressure like so. And there you have it, pretty easy, right? Well, this is what I used to use before I got my hands on the tortilla press. Now we are gonna press the toppings from all the sides to make sure there are no air bubbles between the 2 layers and they are stuck onto these dough balls properly. And then using a very sharp paring knife, we are gonna cut off the extra topping that is overlapping the dough balls and carefully remove it. Now the next step is scoring the toppings to make them look like conchas, aka seashells. So we are gonna begin with making a small cut at the end of the dough ball like so, and then keep making cuts in a half circular motion, working all the way to the other side of the dough ball while leaving at least a 1/4 inch space between each cut, and keep going until we reach to the end. Now I want you guys to be a little extra careful here and don't go all the way down and cut the dough underneath the topping, cause they will ruin the shape of the concha completely. So you gotta trust yourself, get a good feel and keep working with it. Once done scoring, we are gonna cover them with another same size sheet pan and let them proof again at room temperature for anywhere between 1.5 to 2 hours until they are almost doubled in size. And in the last remaining half an hour of proofing, we are gonna preheat the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius. And after 2 hours they are almost doubled in size. Now we are gonna place them in the middle rack of the oven and bake for 20 minutes. And there you have your conchas. Now they are pretty hot at this point, so we are gonna transfer them to a cooling rack and let them cool down a little for like 20 minutes. Now eating concha alone by itself is great, but it's even better when it's paired with a good cup of Mexican hot chocolate. So why don't we make some while the conchas are cooling down? So to make that, in a small size sauce pot, I'm gonna add 710 milliliters whole milk, about 2 inches cinnamon stick and 60 grams of Mexican dark chocolate. Now bring it to a gentle simmer over a low to medium heat and let the chocolate melt really slow. And once it starts steaming, we're gonna kill the heat, give it a nice stir to mix the chocolate, and that is it. And now, I'm gonna pour myself a giant glass of hot chocolate and eat this thing. This concha right here is absolutely delicious. It tastes buttery, it's very light and pillowy on the inside, not overly sweet, and it tastes exactly like the one I had in Panaderias of Mexico. And now it's time for you guys to make them and enjoy these iconic Mexican conchas. Okay guys, so this is how you can make the best conchas in your own kitchen. Now if you learned something today in this video, give this video a like, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Till then, bye bye.